Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Can you wait, Christy?
Hello.
Hey, people.
Hello.
Hang on.
It's always good to start off the podcast by arguing about whether it's recording or live streaming. Hello, everybody.
We're here.
We're back.
We're
We're
live.
still here.
Always
We're
here.
still in reality.
You know,
First of all,
I don't know where everyone else is at, but we're in reality.
Check out this waffle stack. 3 fresh homemade waffles.
Nice.
That's his breakfast this morning.
Are they still fluffy?
Those are cute little waffles. They're like Eggos. You
Yeah.
know?
It's just the waffle machine. That's the size. Katie was making a whole batch.
Wait, can you
We
only
freeze
make
them
one
up and the
waffle
kids
at a
can-
time?
Did you not add chocolate chips to them?
No, I never thought about that. You could actually add blueberries and stuff, couldn't you?
Yeah,
Of
you could.
course.
Are you kidding me?
I don't make them.
I just like this is blasphemy.
This is my reaction video.
This
In this episode, we're going to
if you're
talk about
watching,
reactions.
Katie, if you're watching,
Katie, if
Just
you're
like,
watching, if you're
Add some
watching, did you
blueberries and
not have a
chocolate.
childhood where you got chocolate chip Eggo waffles? I used to literally take a whole box of Eggo waffles, and they would still be frozen because they were good when they're frozen, and I would eat the entire thing all at once.
Frozen?
Wow.
Frozen.
So listen, I used
That
to.
is disgusting.
used to
the
get
kids like to eat them
Eggos.
frozen.
No, yeah, they're good.
They just
Okay,
pull them
but
out of the.
you-
I mean,
They're
we
like-
have homemade ones.
They're
They're
like
not
kind
Eggo,
of
but
crunchy, kind of.
I used to get Eggos and like with the blueberries and stuff like that, and I didn't like them, but I kept buying them because the commercials.
Not with the blueberries.
Well, I don't know.
The
The
blueberry
chocolate
ones, they
chips
suck.
are specifically.
okay. So you're criticizing our homemade
designed.
waffles because I didn't know you could put chocolate chips in them, but you were just buying Eggo waffles.
Okay, I was not criticizing that. I was criticizing the fact that you did not know chocolate chip waffles was a thing.
Oh no, that was a misunderstanding. I know they exist. I was just never considered
Oh.
that when we're making them, you could make them that way.
I see.
Yeah.
See, look
You
at
get
this.
creative. But okay,
Look at us.
when you eat like a blueberry waffle, there's not big chunks of blueberry in it. It's like little tiny pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, for sure.
Probably
So
not
how do you
even
get
real
that?
blueberries.
How do you get that consistency?
No, you don't want that.
They're probably
actually
like
want
fake
blueberries in there.
blueberries.
What?
They're probably like fake
Yeah,
blueberries.
true.
I
If
would
you-
put. I would
If it
just
was- if it
make
was a
like
pancake,
a
I'd
blueberry
definitely want a bowl.
sauce. Yeah,
Good
blueberry
news,
sauce
but
on it would be good.
blueberries.
Okay, but that's too
Hmm.
much. That's not to go, Mitch.
Oh,
You
true.
guys ever made your own ice cream?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Hey,
actually.
I just had a flashback to when Drake
Right?
came to visit the first time and he met Jessica, and Jessica had us put to work. It was
Yeah.
fucked up.
Well, actually, I had met just before that.
My hands had oh yeah.
Right.
When you guys come
yes.
down
In
next
her
time, we're gonna have to
element.
make some.
Okay.
'Cause
Well,
we
okay.
have raw cream from our cow.
But
Right,
you have like an
that's
actual ice
huge.
cream maker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were the ice cream makers.
Drake, tell it like one of your
You said
stories.
it
that
like
you're
Aphex
so
Twin
good at.
Churning.
Ice cream makers.
We are the
We-
ice cream maker. Or that's
we
we
are
are
the
the
ice-
music makers. Never mind.
Ice cream paint job.
You guys are churning the ice cream by hand. Is that what
No,
I'm
we were
understanding?
shaking it. And so, okay, we go in to
Oh,
Jess's
yeah.
apartment, which was covered with a bunch of like huge paintings and everything that she got from somebody else's apartment literally like weeks before. Do you remember
This is
this?
like this is like, you know how Gary Vee made it cool to flip stuff and like do that. Jess was doing that just unconsciously, competently.
Yeah,
it's,
there you
it's
go.
cool to what?
Like just
Hoarding?
get a whole bunch of hoarding essentially, but from garage sales. Garage sales. That's
Well,
what Gary
and-
Vee made it.
okay. She was cool with the apartment owner. So anytime her apartment or any of the apartments nearby had someone move out or just had stuff to get rid of, they would give Jess first. So like, for example, this bookshelf was from one of those places.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's like a bunch of cool stuff you can get. Actually, these lights I'm using right now are from that too. See, hoarding pays off, Christine. Okay.
Until
I
you're
bet
on
there's like
TLC.
3 more things in this.
Until you're on
Listen,
from that.
TLC, okay?
I don't condone
Put it
hoarding.
up on TLC.
But yeah, so we went over to Jess's place. She had a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. A really cool setup with like a bunk bed. which didn't have a lower bunk, but it did have a desk underneath the bunk bed, which is pretty cool.
That was made
Uh,
by her dad though, so that was actually like sturdy. The rest of the stuff
Okay.
is like
Okay,
really
no,
suspect.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool.
Mhm.
And then she had cooked for
When are we
us
getting to the
something.
ice cream?
Hang on.
Okay.
She
So
cooked
we went
something
to
for
her
us.
neighbor's house and they just left us ice cream.
I think she cooked some soup, right? Is it soup? Anyway, she made us some soup. And then she was like, guys, would you like some ice cream? And we're like, of course, we would like some ice cream. And she gave us bags full of cream and ice, like a bag full of cream, but inside of a bag of ice and salt. And she was like, here you go, shake it.
I feel like we've done that before. Katie would
yeah?
know, but I feel like we have done that method like before we had an ice cream maker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when she, yeah. I mean, it works.
I do
right?
not recommend it.
Well, we were sitting there shaking these bags of ice for like, I don't know.
And then the salt was coming out and it was
the
like on
salt
your
would like
hands and it
spew out
burned.
everywhere. So you get like cold, wet salt all over you.
And
I
it
don't
was
remember any of
like
that.
it was like 45 minutes. It
So
was
fast forward 45 minutes. Was the ice cream any good?
Yeah.
it was decent. Yeah. It wasn't anything special.
All right, so here's how an ice cream maker works. You have this really cold bowl sort of thing.
Mhm.
It spins, and then like there's like a little plastic thing. Maybe you can get them made out of other things, but there's like this little thing that's inside of it that basically it churns it as it spins. So it's not just spinning in the bowl, it's like spinning, but then there's like a plastic thing that churns it, I guess. And the bowl itself is frozen, like it's got water in it, and you keep it in the freezer, and so it's cold. And then you pour your mixture of that stuff that you guys were shaking into that, and then over like 30 minutes to an hour, it becomes ice cream on its own. No shaking
Damn.
required. No salt
Automation.
required.
You
Wow.
don't shake it when it's done.
Yeah. No, because we got an ice cream maker from our wedding. Someone gifted it to us. And then
Have you
we
used
got
it?
like goat milk from my neighbors. Oh yeah. And then the raw milk too that we get from the other local farm until we have
Yeah,
our own
yeah.
cow. So good.
You get cream.
Man.
Probably you
I
get cream
think-
on the top of the milk, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, we just do the whole thing. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Katie's
That-
found
I
the
add chocolate
perfect,
chips,
like
too.
she's found the perfect ratio of cream to milk to where it's like real, like a thick, not overly thick, but like the perfect consistency that we like. And then lately we've been doing it
Dang.
where we add like she'll cook up like blueberries, kind of like you were talking about, like a puree sort of thing, and then you cool it down and then you pour that into it. We've done that. We've done peaches,
Dang.
like fresh, like local peaches. But the blueberry one's probably my favorite.
Do you ever do
Dude,
peaches and blueberries? Do you ever do
I haven't
peaches
done
and
that yet.
blueberries?
Not
That would
yet.
be freaking good.
But she said the other day, she was like, do you guys want chocolate? And like before we had thought about doing chocolate, and I was like, but how would you actually do chocolate? Like, how do you get the flavor right and everything, right? So we had not done it. She did the other night. Dude, it was amazing. All it was all she did apparently was add like the cocoa powder to it. Like,
Mm.
that was it. Like just normal ice cream that she would normally make, and then you add the cocoa powder, and it was like, it was good.
Did she add cocoa powder or cacao powder? It's technically different.
Well, I know those are technically different. It's not a smoothie, Mitch. It's not
I
one
know.
of your smoothies.
You probably-
Okay, this is
Cocoa
ice
powder.
cream.
You probably mix it like how you would a smoothie in the beginning. Well, a smoothie, but
No, it's just like cocoa, like baking powder, like chocolate
Oh,
baking powder or
okay.
whatever.
Okay. Nice. I'm sure it's still good. Now, cacao powder though is a superfood. Did you know?
That doesn't
Did you know
taste
this?
like chocolate though.
It's
Oh, it does though. No, it's like
Like
actually
actual
so good.
chocolate. Like you'd be like, oh, this tastes like Dutch chocolate ice cream, or would you be like, this tastes like cacao?
No,
Okay, all right.
they're different.
Okay, if you added some honey, maybe it might. You might
Yeah,
like
or
it
like
more.
maple syrup or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if the people who listen to our podcast, if they prefer this part or they prefer the part where we talk about stuff that matters.
I think
Hey,
they prefer
this matters.
part.
Ice cream technically matters.
Well, it's like
Matter.
you have to have fun. You have to have real life while you're doing
Hey,
this
and
other
then
stuff.
it's groundwork to talk about really interesting facts. For example, with how you know this? Did you know this?
With
Because
what?
it's a superfood.
Wait, say that again. Your
Oh,
internet is
Jesus.
Your
Ah,
chickens are messing
the
with your
rain.
internet.
No, it's the rain.
Say again.
It's the rain. Okay, this is a fun
The
fact.
sky is drooling.
It's a fun fact. Okay. Is that Montezuma, the king of the Mayans or I think Mayans.
Mhm, mhm.
He would drink 50 cups a day of cacao. Did you know this?
How much did he pee?
I have no idea, but he
50
cut people's hearts out.
cups.
50 cups, yes.
How big are
Well,
these
that would
cups?
be a reason not to drink it, wouldn't it?
It makes you superhuman.
Oh wait, he was drinking so much damn cacao, he was constantly shitting. And that's why they call it Montezuma's revenge.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's why you you shit your pants when you go to Mexico and drink their water because it's got cacao in it.
Whoa. That sounds like a conspiracy, Cameron. Okay. I was just sharing.
But what is the difference between cacao and cocoa?
Cacao is-
Cocoa powder is a adulterated form made
no,
by
it's
a
just they just
Hershey's.
bake it. They bake it to make it more rich.
That's the only
And-
difference.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing.
It's
It's just
added-
baked.
Yeah.
but then
but
it doesn't have
heated-
all like the actual nutrition because cacao has a bunch of
right.
nutrients in it.
But
Yeah, I get that.
Mitch, did you hear about this? Cacao powder, raw cacao powder, because cacao beans are heavy metal like they
Oh,
help-
don't tell me this.
yeah, so you have to actually be really kind of careful and not overdo it with the cacao.
This is why my Wi-Fi signal's so fucked up because the metal in my body's fucking with it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
That's it.
anyways, just thought I'd let you know. There's a bunch of chocolates that recently
horrible.
got like they like tested a bunch of chocolates and they have like way more heavy metals than you'd want to be in chocolate. And it's like
I'm
all the
having
good raw cacao.
I'm
Ex-
having a second guessing moment right now. Oh, well, I'll be fine.
Anyways, you can look at
I
it.
mean,
I literally have
chocolate's been
cacao
tested
coffee right now.
over time. Well, now this lends even more credence to my theory about Montezuma. And he was like literally going crazy.
What were you saying about he drank 50 cups of cacao and then was there more to
I'm
that?
just saying. Okay, has anyone
Was
here
that a
ever actually
selling
like?
point?
Yeah.
You're like, you ever heard of Jeffrey Dahmer? Okay, did you guys know that he ate kale every day? So that's why I'm saying you should eat kale. Kale should be a staple of your diet. I'm like, what?
No.
Why is that?
Here's the question. Has anyone here ever actually drank a healthy amount of cacao where you have an effect similar to a cup of
Well,
coffee?
according to Christine, there is no healthy amount of cacao.
I have
Unless
Mitchell.
you're into mercury
I
poisoning.
actually-
Yeah.
Yes, I used to drink cacao drinks all the time. It's just like, anyways, as it becomes more popular, they start doing more tests and stuff on it. It actually has like, the California Proposition 65 or whatever, where it's like
It's like a
potentially
sticker on it.
cancerous or
Oh boy.
whatever.
Oh, so now we're trusting the California government. Got
well,
it,
I'm
Christine.
just saying.
They would
saying,
stick
not-
an anti-cancer warning on
your
warning on
baby.
anti-cancer drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
no, I
would
understand
actually.
that. But there is studies recently. The thing is, like the cacao draws like heavy metals from the soil, so it does like it's just like a natural byproduct of the cacao bean.
Anyway,
So-
Mitchell, I know what you're talking
I'm sorry,
about.
Mitchell.
I
know you look
yeah,
very
I've eaten a
upset.
Okay.
handful of cacao beans, right?
And then did you feel it?
Oh yeah. It was intense.
It feels
What'd you
like
feel?
apparently to anyone who has ever taken a drug called ecstasy, it is like that.
No, it's not like that.
I highly doubt that.
It is not like
What-
Okay, you
what
must
was
think
that
I-
in the side of your screen?
Did you
Christine.
do like a cacao ceremony? Would you say?
Oh,
What was that?
I've been
Did
all
y'all see
sorts of
that?
things like that.
no.
It was like a person's arm. Oh, I thought it was like a person's arm wearing a white shirt. I was like, who's in there with you? And then like a ghost. I thought it was like a Florida
Hazel's
haunted
waving.
It's like sticking your arm out.
I was like, who was
Christine's
that?
actually in labor right now, guys.
It's her
It's the
hand,
midwife.
Her own
She's
hand.
like, okay, you need to breathe now.
Cam's like, who is that? Who is that?
I just wanted to interrupt the cacao discussion. No, but what is it? What was you saying? It makes you feel like what?
No,
Like
it
you're
does
on
not-
ecstasy.
It does not feel like you're on ecstasy at all. No.
Are
It-
you
it-
doing like some sort of cacao ceremony? Have you seen those, Mitchell?
Oh, I used to go to those in California. That was a whole thing.
A
Oh.
cacao
Wait,
ceremony?
Oh, it's a whole. It's
You
a
know,
whole
thing,
you know
whole
what it
culture.
felt like to me? It felt like being high, but on like smoking weed. That's what it felt like, right? But it lasted very.
Maybe your
short.
ecstasy was laced with fentanyl, and that's why it was different.
That
Maybe your
was
cacao
way
was laced
after our
with
time,
fentanyl.
Mitchell.
Maybe your
Come on,
cacao was laced with
relax.
ecstasy, Mitch.
Yeah, maybe your cacao was laced with ecstasy.
Seriously, gosh.
You're like,
Anyway,
cacao being
anyway.
a
And
white
then just to
powder, but
just to
okay.
make sure they feel the effect, a little sprinkle. You know,
I love
okay, so
Destiny.
Christine's been watching a
That's
lot of
fucked up.
these soft white underbellies, and then I sometimes wander in and I'm like, ooh, what's this guy talking about? And they're
Wander in. Were you Joe Biden? You're like, where am I? Who is this house? Whose house is this?
yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. But no, there was this guy talking about, well, there's a lot of people who talk about fentanyl and how they like start doing some drugs. Like there's a lot of prostitutes or former prostitutes recovering addicts and things. Like there was this one woman, who was that woman? She seemed like she was wearing like that cool jacket or whatever. And she was talking about
With
how
all
she
the
got it.
tattoos.
Yeah, exactly. Like
What about it?
wasn't she saying that she tried some drug beforehand, wasn't really into it, and then now she's like addicted to fentanyl or something?
She basically had
on.
tried every other drug.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And she actually likes the effect of fentanyl.
I
Oh,
think
just
she's
turn
just
you into a zombie.
addicted.
Isn't it
Yeah.
basically like kind of like a heroin, a dopamine, like an opiate sort of?
Yeah, but it's
I
like apparently like heroin on heroin. Like it's like the effects is like 100 times the effect of heroin.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
And it's crazy because that's what they give that to like
Damn.
women in labor. Fentanyl. Like you could just get that at the hospital. So it's
What?
part of the regular pharmaceutical
Yeah.
drug, but
What?
but now they're making like street fentanyl and it's like getting laced in everything. So like people are even like trying to smoke it and stuff. It's
Okay.
Like,
Check
you
out
know
the-
how like everything becomes more extreme, like pornography, social media, video games, like even drugs,
yeah.
like are evolving to become more extreme. Like, like even people have told me like people who smoke weed now, it's like way more crazy and stuff than like, to do it,
Yeah,
like 10
yeah.
or 15 years
Joe-
ago or whatever.
This is actually like an important public service announcement. Okay, is the weed that they do? They put it in vapes now, and it's like extremely concentrated THC, so it's way more likely to cause people to have a psychotic break from having it then, because it's
Yeah.
like,
It's like
Young men.
yeah, exactly.
we today and a woman. We today is like 20 times more.
And a binary, non-binary. Sorry.
Yeah, it's 20 times more potent than it was. Well, at least the THC content before used to be like 1% of the plant or marijuana bud or whatever was THC, and now it's like over 20%. And
But
so
sadly though, the TLC content has gone down.
wow. Hey, check this out. Check this out. The precursor chemicals making up the essential ingredients of fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances is from China. After being shipped to Mexico, the chemicals are produced into fentanyl-containing tablets and enters the United States via our southern border. Here's an
But
interesting
that was
take.
just out of his memory.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. I just kind of go, ah. But check out this crazy take I heard over the weekend. In the I forget when this was, but long ago, I guess it would have been in the 1800s. There was something called the opiate wars, right? Or opium wars. And it was basically the US, Great Britain, and other Western countries were trading opium with China. And China didn't really care to trade opium. And
I see where you're going with this.
Right. And so the US basically got, and Great Britain and the other countries involved, basically got the Chinese public hooked on opium, right? And they got them hooked on opium so that the Chinese would continue to trade opium with the US. Well, the Chinese basically, the leaders at that time were like, listen, we see what this is doing. This is actually really terrible for us. And what they tried to do was make opium illegal. But when they tried to do that and stop trading with the Western countries actually went to war with them and forced them to continue selling opium to them. And then years later, basically, this happened twice in a row. And China still had to continue selling opium because they got beat in these wars, essentially. And so the hot take is that this fentanyl epidemic that's going on in the US, because we hear all the time, like there's a epidemic, of fentanyl. I wonder how many people are affected by it. Let me just look that up. But basically, the idea is that it is payback from China for the opium wars, like 200 years later. Let's see, how many people are affected?
Yeah, the difference is like it's like all the corporations here are like going along with it.
Yeah. Right. All right.
Wow.
It looks like,
But it is crazy because I didn't know until listening to those software underbelly interviews, those type of things, that people just did fentanyl as a joke, because I always hear about it as if it was like in something.
right.
And I always thought like,
Nice.
oh, they're like sneaking it in stuff to like poison people, but people are actually just like taking it, like looking for it.
Over
Yeah.
150 people die every day from overdoses related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl
In the US only?
in the US. Yeah. Which
Wow.
doesn't seem like a lot. I'm sure many more
I
people.
mean,
are doing it.
150 people a day.
Hey,
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's.
A day.
Okay, I guess it's a lot.
Yeah, Drake, you
Okay.
insensitive
I guess in
fucking jerk.
comparison to 20,000 kids every day from preventable causes.
But that's just opioids.
Yeah, that's just
Right,
That's
yeah.
that's not even just all overdoses or like alcohol or anything else. Like
Yeah,
that's-
you wonder with alcohol what it is. Jeez. Well,
yeah.
okay. So
Okay.
now here's another point. It's
Okay.
like the thread of the conversation. Okay, this is very fascinating. So did y'all listen to that John Taylor Gatto interview, the 5-hour underground history lesson thing?
Yeah.
That thing is awesome. And that actually is where I learned about a lot of the stuff with like the trade wars and everything. But that's not the point of me bringing this up. Okay, so in that, he talks about a book called Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley. Has anyone read that book?
No.
I haven't read it.
It's a beast.
I have-
Okay.
Anyways,
I got it like a year ago and it's just been sitting on my shelf. So the other night I was hanging out, like Jess was making some applesauce. She's like learning how to can stuff. And so I was hanging out in the other room with Aristotle and I was like, hey, I'm gonna just read you this book. So we started reading it. It was it's like amazing. Like in terms of giving you context in a very structured order of like what is going on with civilization in the different mega civilizations that have existed from ancient Mesopotamia, basically. And then explaining how the civilization will rise and then collapse. And there's like a core civilization, and then there's a peripheral civilization. And then the core civilization gets bogged down, basically. And then the peripheral one then starts to revolt, and then that becomes kind of a catalyst for the next one. So you have like ancient Mesopotamia, you've got like the Roman Empire, you got all these different ones. Right now we're in the fourth, let's say the fourth main one. This is at least according to mainstream history, okay? We all know to take that with a grain of salt, but the core of the current Western civilization, as we call it, is like Northern Italy, France, and Germany was the core. But then the peripheral extends out as far as like America, for example. And then it's like it's kind of how culture diffuses throughout everything. It was fascinating because they explain how usually then it rises and then it collapses. But for the first time, they're seeing with Western culture, it like props itself up back again. It goes from an age of expansion to an age of like decline or whatever they call it, but it's kept propped up by this another period of expansion. And so it's really fascinating to see how that's happened like 3 or 4 times. And like around World War II, for example, was another time that it got propped up by war. And so in the book, because it was written, I think in the 60s or something, he explains, he's like, look, there's 2 ways Western civilization will go. It will either succumb to foreign influences and all this stuff, or it will be propped up again and it will hit another age of expansion. And I was just looking at that and I'm like reading this to Aristotle. So I'm like, this is pretty cool context to just like, impulse hint and just for myself too. And I was seeing how what we represent as self-perfected specifically, it's like, this is literally civilization being built, but it starts as a group and then it expands and it expands. So we're in United States of America. And I see the value of America in that we still honor, quote unquote, the individual freedom through our laws, at least. Now, is that fully happening? All that, it's like that's the system as we have it right now. But I was seeing this of like, this is literally the way bigger picture that I don't know how many people listening to this podcast or in this group actually see, but what this group represents is the next level of that core civilization. And like it's a monumental
Yeah, because
task at
it's the
hand.
only way for it to continue is with principles. Otherwise, it has to just, and even the point of everything becoming more pressurized and falling apart, it brings forth within everybody like having to face like basically your demons and your mind and so forth. So everyone has to get to that point of realizing like, oh, who am I really? And then what we're doing with self-perfected is showing like, okay, here's the starting point of how to change all of that once you start facing these points. You know, I was looking at some kind of crazy stuff Katie showed me. I mean, it's not really crazy. I just say that because I think that's how most people would perceive it. But I sent you guys that stuff about OSDD and D.I.D. Right.
Yeah.
I know Mitch, you haven't looked at it yet, so we'll get your live reaction. But you guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
It was really interesting because I had not heard of it before. I've heard of like, so it's D.I.D. is dissociative identity disorder. OSDD is otherwise specified dissociative disorder, I think, right? And so they're kind of related to each other. And the basic concept is that, in terms of the theory of it, is that, you know, you have all these alternate selves with different identities inside of you. And at any point, any one of them can be kind of at the forefront and sort of like in control of the body and everything, right? And so it's kind of like what people would imagine multiple personality disorder. And I'm sure that has some that's related to it as well. But there's always all these different names and it's always changing
I
and
think
stuff. So I don't know the
I
history.
think multiple personality disorder is no longer a
Right. That's what I was thinking. Like it's just that was maybe
They don't use
previously
that
what we
term.
would have called it or something. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what they're always changing names and stuff and getting more specific. And there's like OSDD 1A and OSDD 1B. And there's like a subtle difference between the two. And like there's this concept of amnesic walls. So some people will experience it where the one alternate self, when it's doing things, and then now there's the other one, it won't remember anything about what the other one was doing. So it's like you're literally experiencing it as like amnesia. You don't know anything about what happened then, or you can't put it together. But people experience it to varying degrees. And what's interesting, and I want to play like a clip for a moment to see people in context, but what's interesting about it is it's like it's kind of similar to, do you guys remember that software underbelly video with the guy who was schizophrenic, who was talking about like, you know, hearing like traffic noises and it's like a binary that like, you know, some beings were communicating with him or something. Do you guys remember that one? I don't know if we talked
I
about
remember
that
you
one.
describing it. Yeah.
Okay. But in that interview, the guy was like, okay, so you know right now, like you're lucid right now. Like you're not schizophrenic right now. The guy's like, oh no, I'm totally schizophrenic right now. Like I'm hearing it right now. And the guy was like, okay, but you're having a conversation with me. You know that it's not real. And the guy was like, well, yes, it is and it isn't. So like the guy knew it was a psychological disorder, but at the same time, he knew it was real.
Yeah.
Like, because from his perspective, it's like, it's also really happening, but I also know that it's a disorder. It's like, it's this weird kind of confusion, right? And so it seems similar, like with a lot of people I was listening to about the OSDD and the D.I.D thing, where they know it's a psychological disorder, or at least that's how it's presented, and that's how they discovered that they have this issue. But the way they talk about it is as if it's actually just who they are. Like
Yeah.
they're accepting it.
Yeah.
It's like if I was like, look, guys, I'm schizophrenic and I see imaginary people. In fact, I see one right now. This is my friend Joe. You know, I've known him for a long time. He's a really great guy. And you're like, wait, but you know he's not real. Yeah, I know, but he's also a really great guy and he helps me out. And so it's like I know it's imaginary, but at the same time, I participate in it as if it's a real thing as well.
It's super interesting because we just read we just read Creation's Journey day 265 or 267, one of those, right?
Which one was it about?
It was
Realize.
yeah,
Say again?
realize, see, realize, right? Something like that. And like real is spelled the second time REEL, right? But anyway,
Realize,
I-
see real thoughts.
yeah, see real thoughts. There you go. Yeah. And what's being described there is like how you'll take on these characters and then justify these characters. And if somebody's not playing along with your character or threatening your script, you'll turn around the whole script on them, right? And while Christina and I were watching these people talk about their OSDD, we were like, this is literally just like everybody experiences this. You're just like accepting it to the extreme degree, you know?
It's just everyone experiences it, but depending on your education in the system, you'll be in the system, like you'll have a job or you'll have some particular thing that allows you to be legitimate, if that makes sense. Because it's like, you might say, well, like the schizophrenic person, they hear voices in their head. And I'm like, well, but everyone hears a voice in their head, don't they?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, yeah. And it's like, well, but that's normal. Well, doesn't it tell you things that aren't true? Like your neighbor's talking about you, but that didn't turn out to be true. Like it's actually schizophrenic. But this person over here, they have a job, they fit into the system, and things are basically not challenging the system in any way. Like versus the schizophrenic person over here is crazy and like, you know, runs around throwing shit at, you know, car windows and stuff. Like you can't run a society stably if you allow a lot of people to do that. So, but over here, it's okay if this person's mad as long as they still go to work and fit in and contribute, you know. You have varying degrees of madness. Right?
Christine sent me this video of this woman saying like, I needed to catch a flight or something like that. And I was asking like, what happens, you know, for someone who suffers from like time blindness, like, you know, if I miss my flight. And then my friend who was there kind of cut in as if she was embarrassed by me and like corrected what I was saying, like, oh no, what she meant was this. Like, why is it such a stigma to have time blindness? Like if I go in for a job,
Sounds
right?
like a goddamn superpower.
It
sounds like some kind of like sci-fi novel I would read of like, oh, I have time blindness.
Yeah.
Is it like color blindness?
It's like color blindness, but it's time blindness.
Is it like you respect all calendars? Like, yeah,
No.
well, in China, it's the year 3579, so that's the year it is.
She goes on
What
to
is
say
time blindness? It just means you
she's-
have no
she's
fucking
like-
concept of time.
Well,
Right.
you just can't like you just
She's
you
like,
won't
Basically, you
show up
haven't
any-
discovered how to use a calendar.
like how no
how to
like
use a
what,
clock more.
how to use a
so.
clock. Like why should I get fired or not even hired if I can't, you know, show up, if I don't show up because of time blindness? Like I didn't know what time it was, you know, like I didn't. And like there's
Well, I understand. So what does it mean actually? Like they don't know what time it is? I don't
Like-
know what time it is.
It's just like
Until
this
I look.
excuse to like say I don't pay attention to the time, so I'm showing up whenever I basically want. To me, it sounds like I'm basically showing up whenever I want, and
Yeah.
you better just accept that because I have this thing called time blindness where I can't keep track of time.
It's
like-
kind of like
Show
saying
up
you have
to-
ADHD because you just don't want to sit and focus on
Right.
something.
Right, exactly.
So funny. Okay. This is so interesting because then I'm rereading the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim
Right now?
Taleb. Like right now.
Like literally right now in real
Like
time.
hear it in
What-
my head.
what
Like
paragraph
he's
are you
right here
on?
next to me. He's reading it to me. What'd you say, Jake?
I said, what paragraph are you on?
I don't know. I'm paragraph blind. Okay.
Does that mean
So-
you can't see paragraphs?
Yes, I can't read actually.
Oh, okay. You're just blind.
I actually can't see.
I
Yeah.
want to come back to
Okay.
the time blindness later because I was reading an article about it just now. Okay, go ahead.
So in the book, he's explaining how there wasn't a word for anti-fragile like throughout history, because so the whole premise of the book is like something that's fragile is like something that can break. And he's like, well, what would the opposite of that be? And most people think, oh, just something that wouldn't break. But he says, no, it's actually something that gets stronger. So instead of it getting weaker when it breaks, it actually gets stronger when it breaks. And that's his whole like premise behind the book. But then he starts to open up like why, like how these words came to be. And then he there's a word called apophatic, apophatic, and in simplest terms, I can best explain it through an example right now, is how there's cultures, like he said, in ancient Greece, when he was sharing the story, when it was like the story of Homer or whatever, they only Drake.
Image in the chat.
Drake is a troll. Drake is a troll.
Drake
in the
trolls
chat,
his
always.
own podcast in this chat.
He's explaining how like when they came up with the story of the Iliad and the Odyssey, whatever, they really only had words for 4 colors. But they've somehow seen throughout history that they actually could see other colors, but they didn't have words for it.
Oh,
And
like
so it
blue.
reminds, like blue, they called it like wine,
Like wine,
color. Yeah. So it's interesting because like the time blindness thing, or like the ADD, or the OSD, or whatever the hell the stuff is called. It's like people are putting words to things that are happening in reality, but it's all fucked up right now because people are using words to like embellish things to accept their limitations instead of building the vocabulary to actually map directly to reality. It's just like really fucking wild thing.
Yeah.
But it actually shouldn't even be wild. This is just vocabulary. It's just we're still limited by our current vocabulary and the context by which we interpret the world.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like the system is taking it all and mapping it to like this fucked up, collapsing society instead of accurate.
It's also
You know?
taking it and making it justified.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when
Mhm.
it's like they know it's a problem, but it's also accepting it.
Yeah.
So instead of the system saying like, okay, people exist with this so let me explain more thing. One of the people is explaining it's like at the point in the psychological theory where as a child you have sort of multiple different things you identify as due to some trauma, the point where they would fuse into a coherent sense of self, that doesn't happen. And so they remain as distinct identities. In other words, like different people with different identities, selves, and so forth, right? This is the theory, anyways. And so the person is aware of that. And yet they still experience the point as if it's a different person. And so, but the system, instead of it being like, okay, this is not the best way to exist as a human being. Like maybe we don't know how to solve it, but this is not the best way to exist. Like this is not conducive to having a world that's best for everybody.
Just to
and they know
clarify.
it's a result of trauma. Go ahead.
Okay, when you're saying system in this context, you're not talking about like the person system, how they describe
Oh,
themselves.
when did I say system? Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I meant the system as a whole, like the larger world system. That we live in,
okay.
right? It's like when I say system, a lot of times what I mean is
I was just clarifying that point because
no,
they
I know I was just looking at a point to also clarify.
Okay,
It's
okay.
like okay, let me give you an example. There's all these kids being prescribed like hormones for transgender stuff, right?
yes.
Who is doing that? Is it one person?
Doctors.
Right, it's a
No,
bunch of different people, right? But then you're like, why are they doing it? And a lot of times they're going along with some might actually genuinely believe what they're doing is best. Some are just going along with it because they're just doing their job and that's what the thing was prescribed. But who's setting those rules? And like it's like a whole system that at every level people are participating in. But you can't just be like it's this person doing it or it's these people only. It's like there could be some other level at which people are being influenced, right? It's like it's kind of like people blame Joe Biden for something. It's like even if he wasn't a bumbling geriatric whatever, is he really the guy making the decisions anyways? Or is he just the actor on the stage? And maybe he's making some decisions at some level and has some influence, but he's not the only person making decisions. You know, you have corporations and other governments and all these other things that are going. It's a system. It's not just a one thing. So to sit there and like the whole thing with Justin Trudeau recently, did you see this? Right?
that he's having
Getting divorced or
divorce,
whatever, or
yeah.
separated or whatever. And people are like, I see these memes where people are like, oh, your life's so lucky because we can't divorce him, you know? And it's like blaming as if Justin Trudeau is the person who's making all the decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, so when I say system, it's like, because you can't really put your finger on a specific person or thing. It's the whole point, all working under the principle of everybody's in self-interest. And how can we amplify that to the point where everyone has to face it? And that's really the purpose of the system, actually. It's not, you know, maybe not by design, but that is what it's serving us as. So going back to the OSDD thing, it's like the system supports it. And instead of it being like, hey, this is not what we should be, kind of like with the trans thing. Okay, yes, there's people experiencing this stuff, but this is not how it should be. This is a problem that we need to address and figure out how to solve this. It does the same thing. So people end up accepting it as who they are, and it's justified. And now you have a world where you're like, well, now we have to start accepting the fact that there are people who exist as multiple identities, and that is truly who they are. And you're like, yeah, but it's a result of trauma. Regardless, it is who they actually are, you know. It's kind of like the point with autism and all these other things. It's like all these problems are coming to the surface, and instead of being like, oh shit, guys, look at all these problems, we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what is causing all this. It's like, no, we need to be accepting of the diversity of all the different expressions that are possible as being a human being.
You know
It's
what
just-
that would be like? It would be like if someone came back from war, had their arm amputated, and then to be accepting of that, it's just like, oh, it's totally normal to have your arm amputated, you know, and then people who have a perfectly working arm then start going and getting their arm amputated because well, it's
I mean,
normal,
that
it's
literally is
okay.
happening right now.
That is what's happening, right? But like it happens in so many different sectors. Like you may be thinking as I'm saying this, what are you thinking?
Penises.
Exactly.
No, but I was also thinking about people who like are trans disabled,
Oh,
But I was-
yeah.
who really like actually want things amputated to feel like their true self, which is someone who's disabled.
So here's what I was
That
thinking of.
exists.
I was thinking of daycare, putting your child in daycare. Like that is literally it was created as sort of a last resort for parents of like, okay, well, you know, put your kid in daycare because you have to go to work and all this. But a lot of parents today see it as some sort of you can either have this or that. Like it's just a preference. What do you prefer? Right. And they don't realize the consequences that your child will suffer from being in daycare, especially if they're in daycare for, you know, over 15 hours.
It's like you can eat
daycare,
healthy
especially if you're in
food that's
daycare.
like full of nutrients, or you can just eat at the gas station every day. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, those are two equally legitimate choices. I'm like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
no, the whole point of convenience food was simply because of highways and, you know, you can go into a whole thing about it, right? But it's like,
Right.
it's not because it's an actual legitimate alternative.
It's
Right.
just messed up too, because the more that these younger generations have all these like quote unquote disabilities and this and that. I was telling Drake, and like I remember watching this in a documentary too. I think it was one of the vaccine documentaries actually, where it's like we're just creating a society that's becoming more and more dependent. Like you can't, like for example, autism. Some kids, like some people that have autism, they're permanently like going to be dependent on someone to take care of them. So it's like if you have a higher percentage of more people that are going to be like quote unquote disabled in some way, how the fuck are we going to have some sort of functioning society? Like it's going to get to a point where like who's going to be around to like take care of these people essentially, and then it's like and then no one wants to work at the same time. Like I don't know, it's just you see that it's kind of going into like a train wreck. And I think now it's even statistically known, or like we're at a point where kids are not going to outlive their parents. Like that's the trend that's happening.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Well, it's like kids are getting sicker and like basically more diseased younger. So like now we're at a point where like the parents are actually outliving the children.
Wow.
Here's what this
This
is.
is
Thank
actually what
goodness.
something our
Thank
pediatrician
goodness
said.
you need just, they're coming out with more vaccines.
This is something who
'Cause
said?
that's clearly working.
Our pediatrician actually told us, because we were
Oh.
looking for a pediatrician, but I've also heard this like in the medical community, like that this is the
It's almost
thing.
it's almost like a weird thing for a pediatrician to say. Because like I know you want me to be your kid's doctor, but just so you know, they might die before. It's not my fault, you know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like,
No,
you know, I don't want you to blame me,
he's
but they're
cool.
probably
No,
gonna.
no,
You know.
no, no. He was cool. He was cool.
No, I
Because he
know,
was
just
just
like-
saying, because he's like we picked him because he's got a more like holistic approach and like
Yeah, yeah.
does all that kind of stuff. But he was just saying like, but as part of our like long-term mission is like to reverse that trend. It's like, because this is unacceptable. Essentially, this is like not acceptable. And like, that doesn't make any sense that, you know, the children are suffering more essentially than their parents.
Right.
And it's like just happening early and early. And you can see it like so many people, like I know so many young people that have things like colitis or like diabetes, like things that would manifest when you're like 50 to 60 are now happening when you're like 20, 30, you
Right.
know? So anyway.
So,
So should we just give up?
well, obviously that's why we've done this podcast for so long.
Give up what? What do you want me to give up?
Your
Give up your
multiple
wants,
fucking
your needs, your
personalities.
Can I? You want me to share this like video?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You can.
Show the fans.
You were gonna say something about time blindness too.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll show that. I was just looking up.
I'm expecting a really funny dad joke about time bomb.
No. It's like they're legitimizing it. Like, look, health.
Oh yeah.
It happens to all of
Blindness?
us.
my
A skewed
God.
perception of time happens to everyone at some time. People with ADHD or autism, keeping track of time can be particularly difficult. It's a natural consequence of hyper focus. It's like I didn't show up to my McDonald's job because I was just so hyper focused on Game of Thrones. You know, that's like what it's saying here.
Right.
But
It's like
it's,
the
it's
whole,
making it like a
A
Oh,
lot of
I used to
kids
have
can't-
that.
a lot of kids now like can't tell time on like a
Analog.
Yeah, like and I've like my grandma tested this with my cousins and they actually can't tell time on like a regular like clock, like because they always just have their phones.
guess who can
Oh.
tell time on a regular clock in my house.
Caius.
Legit.
Seriously.
Also, we'll have to come back to this too. The bed rotting. I don't know if you guys heard about this yet.
No.
All right. I'll just start at the beginning.
These
I just
fucking terms, they're just churning out fucking words.
Yeah.
It's
Wow, look
it's
at all these-
amazing.
Look at all
It's
these
really
recommended videos on D.I.D.
Cameron, your recommended videos are getting fucking.
I know I'm getting my algorithm's getting fucked up right now.
Oh, Jimmy
Man.
Fox apologizes to the Jewish community for something. Oh, this is exciting.
Yeah, I already looked into that. It's just much bullshit.
Oh, okay.
All right. Drake's like, oh yeah,
Let's listen to this pirate.
give me the juice. Yeah. Okay, but I just want you guys to pay. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. Just I want you to hear like the language of how she talks about herself. This is what's really interesting about it. Okay, and then I'm gonna tie it into all of this other stuff.
Ignore the cornflakes. Bon dia. I am Tilly from the Lou system. We are a D.I.D system of about 50 as of right now. And I want to share with you guys some signs or some clues that helped us figure out that we were a system or a multiple. If you don't know what a system is, D.I.D or OSDD stands for Dissociative Identity Disorder, or otherwise specified dissociative disorder. 9 to 10 is about the age that children's separate personality traits or states, whatever you want to call them, fuse together and create their one identity. And a D.I.D or OSDD system occurs when a child, prior to having those states of self fuse, experiences significant amount of trauma that can cause the brain to dissociate enough to cause amnesic walls between these separate personality states, which causes them to then develop separately into separate identities, resulting in a system. The opposite of a system is a singlet. Singlets are just people whose brains didn't develop those amnesic walls between personality states, so they fused into one identity. Now, this is not to say that singlets never experience childhood trauma. some people's brains decide that the way that they are going to survive is to create these separate identity states.
Okay.
Wait,
It's
wait,
interesting how
wait.
what's up?
Go back and look at the comments.
One of them was like, "This video is such a mood."
Yeah.
All the
Um,
comments are like, "Oh, I thank you so much. I have this. Oh, thank you for this video. It really makes me appreciate this." Like
Look,
all
I'm
that.
almost certain that I'm part of a system.
Yeah.
Like,
And people
yes.
think I'm
Yes, you
crazy
are.
and we're crazy for saying that there's a system. They're like, what system? I'm like, come on. Man, I'm trying to find, let me just click through here real quick. 'Cause I'm trying to find another one that's specific.
Wow, yeah, your recommended
not this-
videos are
Today-
fucked.
We're going to be talking.
Hold on, there's a specific one.
They all look really young too.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to show you this one real quick. Okay, I just want to hear the intro.
Hi guys, this is Sandra of the Alexandrite system, and I am here today with our friend Silver of the Ring system. Silver here also has a system-focused YouTube channel. They do a lot of really, really good educational content. Their stuff is what we primarily link new people to. So I will include a link to their channel in the description. We actually have another part to this collaboration on their channel. So check that out.
Double collaboration time.
So today we're going to be talking about the differences between systems. Even though Silver and I are both OSDD1B systems, there are still a lot of differences in how our systems operate. And it really goes to show how even though you have the same disorder, it is still a very unique experience to everyone, and how it's important to know that you can find somebody whose experience is very close to yours, but you will most likely never find somebody whose experience is exactly the same.
There was one video, I just want to show you guys how they're talking about it. There was one video, I think it was on this girl's channel. And a lot of the comments were like, thank you so much. We realized we were a system by watching your videos. And yes, we are also, and it's this we stuff.
So we went from, I'm a she. Okay, no, I'm a he. To I'm a they. I'm a them. Now I'm a we.
So you can see the whole non-binary thing.
Yeah.
When people think non-binary is just a gender point, these people are like, I'm a system. They even come up with names. She was the Ring system. The other one was the Alexandrite system. And she was like, right now I'm this person of this system. Right. And it's interesting how they talk
System
about it. 'Cause it's
demons.
so clinical how they're talking about it. And very matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. There was one part, and I think it was in that video where she was saying they were talking about the differences between how they both experience themselves. And one of them was saying how they were talking about good days versus bad days. And it was really interesting because so there's they call it switching and fronting. Fronting is which personality is the one that's in the forefront, and then they can switch, right?
It's funny because
And-
it's what fronting also means is you're
right.
It's
So you're so fake. It's yes, I am a system. I am of this, that was just my other personality talking. But it's at a point where it's like schizophrenia. They're actually seeing the thing.
Yeah.
Or they're actually hearing the thing. That doesn't mean it's real. Their mind is creating it, but it's not something they at the moment can just turn off. Do you see what I mean? They don't know how to not participate in it. And then you look at your life, everybody is going through a similar point. It's just in a different context. So you look at how your mind fucks with you. Right. I remember I sent this to, I think it was Keith or somebody, he was making this comment of look at how much the mind can bend reality. Right. And hold on, what was the good days versus bad days? They were talking about how long one altar will be in front and how long between switching. And the one girl was on a good day, it'll be like every 5 minutes or something. On a bad day, it'll be every 6 hours. And they
That
were
they
saying that,
switch.
yeah,
So
and they
it
were
was
saying
better
the
for them that they
longer it's
switch
one,
often.
yes, the longer it's a consistent like point of personality that's in front, they said the more draining it is.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
You just think how like the whole TikTok thing, it's like swipe, swipe, swipe. It's like this constant, I need a new stimulus. Wow.
You know, I was thinking about that, how it's like the technology that we have is a reflection of our mind. You know, like you go back to when the first movie was shown, that was like a 20-second clip of like a train pulling into a station, and everybody in that theater like jumped back because they thought like a train was actually coming at them. You know, it's like, and then now to today, where we've got like the TikTok where it's like literally 15 minutes or 15 seconds rather, 15 seconds of just like, okay, and then next, and then next, and then this blurb, and this song kind of pops in, and then next, oh, that song is back, next, and like, it's just, that's how our mind runs right now. And this is a reflection of it. It's an outward reflection of it, you know?
I was looking at YouTube the other day, and I had clicked on the shorts section,
Mhm.
and now I realize why they
Were
have
you,
that.
were you
'Cause
actually
why does-
shopping for shorts?
Yes, I was clicking on shorts. Actually, I was on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
But I realized why now Facebook and YouTube have them. It's because they're so addictive, and they just want you to stay on the app.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Because I was
Yeah.
going through and I'm like, oh wow, I could see how exactly what you were saying. Because I don't have TikTok, and I've looked at it before, but I didn't really get the point about the addictiveness of the swiping until I was looking at the YouTube shorts, right?
Right.
And now Facebook has it. They call it Reels, I think.
Yeah. Instagram has it too. Yeah.
But I noticed on the YouTube one, there was these ones that were popping up, and it was like, it'll be, and I noticed different creators doing the same trend,
Mhm.
where it's like a guy or a girl, whatever, but it's usually like a guy in a studio. He's like a producer, like on his computer. And then like the door will open, and him in a different outfit will come in
Yeah.
and be like, all right, I'm here. And it'll be like, that time, the rapper
exactly
wants
what
to
you're
make a
talking about.
mellow song or some shit like that. And then the guy will like have an idea, and they'll kind of, oh, I don't know, should we do that? Yeah, okay. And then like, are my friends here? And he's like, he's got a guitar, and it'll be like this little mini story of them making a beat. And then it'll suddenly go into like the song, and the producer will be like, yeah, wow. And it'll be like this back and forth thing. And it's just the same person the whole time.
Yeah.
But it creates this really compelling little story that you want to focus on.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I see tons of people doing this format because the algorithm is like, yep, that's what people want to see. It works. And it's just like the algorithm is just trying to trap you into fucking continuing to sit there and watch. That's all it is.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is, those people describe themselves as a system of like different personalities.
Isn't it amazing? Like crazy, like the way they were describing it. It's just so like almost alien. You know what? It sounds like a computer. Like the way that first girl with the eye patch was describing it, it sounded like someone describing a computer that has like a problem in its hard drive.
Yeah.
And the files didn't copy properly, and now it has this permanent issue in it. And she's just describing like a computer tech problem.
Yeah.
But it's like her experience of herself.
How is
But
it
it's-
any different than like the spiritual people describing the different star families? Like I'm from Arcturus, and
That's what it sounded like.
Atlantean and Sirius, and
Or like
See, but to them,
Abraham
it's not a
Hicks,
disorder. It's like, no, I've discovered the truth about. And
Yeah,
then when you
right.
listen to what are they saying? Because I could see somebody going like, well, but look at Destiny. Like they have all these different beings come through and everything. But what is being said?
It's just a justification.
On the other side, it's just everyone talking about, actually going back to that blog you were talking about from Bernard, the realize, see real thoughts. And the word real is REEL, because it's talking about you have like a movie that plays in your mind where you have special abilities or powers or something unique. And that's like, you're sort of like this movie star in your mind.
Right.
And everything revolves around that instead of just what's actually here in physical reality and what do we need to sort out. And so the TikTok and that kind of stuff, it's like you can just sit and watch a movie all day long, different movies, quick. And another thing too, I showed you guys before that Planet Mountain Dew stuff. Remember that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
And I've seen like all these different posts.
Whoa. Did you just say that was awesome?
It was awesome.
What are you, a fucking Alexandrite system?
Dude,
That shit
I share
sucked.
that. I share that shit with people all the time now. I'm like, do you know where AI is at right now?
Okay,
I know,
okay.
I know people don't actually keep up with it, right?
Okay.
No,
like-
like they don't. Yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, AI. That thing's done, right? I'm like, are
You heard about it. It was impulsed, and then but it got everyone to a new level of acceptance.
Okay. Want to know what's so fascinating though? Because like you can look at the sound of words and the word TikTok. Well, what is a tick? I looked it up here on the CDC. Ticks are sudden twitches, movements, and sounds of people or sounds that people do repeatedly. People who have ticks cannot stop their body from doing these things. So it's like literally, it's like impulsing ticks into everybody.
Also,
And then they
maybe
just
we
talk.
talked about this, but TikTok was a character in Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
a robot.
really?
Yeah, a robot. It was like the robot character in Wizard of Oz.
Also, we watched this one TikToker woman, I guess a year ago now, who was like, she had Tourette's, and she was
Oh,
pretty
yeah, I
funny.
remember
She was pretty funny. She would go, "You're done."
Oh yeah, I remember. She'd be like,
You remember that
"You're
original
done."
guy?
Yeah.
The original on YouTube, the first time I ever heard like the Tourette's guy that got popular, he would like mow his lawn. Do y'all remember that guy?
Oh yeah. And he'd be
What
like,
did he
"Fuck
yell?
balls," like
Yeah,
he'd
that
just,
guy.
cuss.
Right. I remember the first time I watched that being like very uncomfortable. I'm like, what is this shit? And like, why is it so funny? Now it's just like normal. Like that's what it's just devolved into. It's like that's what gets the attention.
So it's like, oh, there was this other point with the D.I.D. OSDD thing. So I was watching this other girl who has like a popular channel on it talking about, okay, there was like a group of psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever, that had made a presentation using some prominent OSDD, DID YouTubers, explaining how people fake having the disorder.
Hmm.
And so these people were complaining about that because they were like, one of the problems this one girl has with her DID or OSD or whichever one it was, is she's constantly thinking that she might be faking it.
Oh,
And so she was talking about something called what she calls the self-doubt spiral. And she's like, it's not just normal self-doubt where you doubt yourself. She's like, I'm constantly like thinking that I might be acting and I'm not sure if I'm acting. And like, it's like a whole fucking mental complex.
wow. Why wouldn't she just stop? Just if
That's
you're
the
acting,
point.
It's
just
like
stop
actually the little
acting.
spark of life left within her is like, hey, you're fucking lying to yourself.
But like when you were growing up, like, wasn't there, I mean, everybody participated in this. Like, there's like the goth kids. And we talked about that before. It's like, that's kind of how we see the trans thing. It's just with the goth kids, it was like you had to go to the record store and find the records and meet other kids that were like you, like back then or whatever. Now you could just go on TikTok and be impulsed really fast with a lot of them. And then suddenly you're like, I want to do that.
What's funny?
Imagine giving that to a child when they're before like 7.
Oh, dude, that would be so abusive.
So
abusive.
it's when people are just blaming the schools, right? But I know like somebody recently was telling us they went to like a homeschooling thing and they said the homeschool kids there were so dumb. They were so dumb. Because do you think the parents are actually taking any responsibility, or is it just, well, I'm not gonna put my kid in school, so I'm gonna give them some school curriculum or whatever, but then they're probably gonna be on iPads and TikTok, and how do they say no to that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just,
Yeah.
so these
it's
kids are getting
insane.
impulse with fuck knows what. Like, it's
Yeah.
fucked.
Wasn't there something too with like Disney? I think Katie made a video about this a long time ago about like the weird shit getting impulsed on Disney or on YouTube Kids.
Yeah, there was
or
a whole
whatever.
scandal back on YouTube where it was like,
They were like
it was called
sneaking
like,
in.
I think it was called like Elsa Gate or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the gate.
And it was like them making weird ass videos that were not for kids, but that had Spider-Man costumes and Elsa and stuff like that.
So parents couldn't tell if a parent was walking by seeing it, like, oh, they're just watching Spider-Man.
Yeah, but it was just so they
cartoons.
would click on it. But they'd be like weird, almost like adult like scenarios and stuff, and just weird shit. Like I remember seeing a couple of them, and it was definitely weird shit. Like it didn't,
Right.
it was not
So-
kid stuff.
So like what's interesting, because within me, I'm fucking clear on like what I'm here to do and what we're here to do. It's like we sort this out. But it's fascinating because right now the majority of people are just spiraling. And it's like everyone has their own form of, let's say, this D.I.D, where they dissociate into like this personality, this version of themselves or whatever. But they haven't like had a break, let's say, where it's like they can't function properly in, let's say, quote unquote normal society. But the thing is, what self-perfected represents, and like literally it's in the principle of self-perfection through self-creation, is using these tools to learn how to forgive yourself and basically live as that best version of yourself. And so I'm 100% clear of what we're here to do and what we're here to share and how it grows. But the thing is, what we're doing is so unique because you, like, as a outsider, no one can do it for you. No one can do it for you. And the whole system is pushing the whole like, oh, just accept your limitation. Whereas our whole group is like, fuck your limitation. And so that's why it can be so jarring sometimes when people come into this group and we're not willing to accept their bullshit. It's like, we're willing to have a one-on-one conversation. We'll support you to see why it's bullshit. But what we're doing is, it's not easy. Easy gets you D.I.D.
Yeah.
You know?
I think sometimes when people hear, because I know when I first came into this group, for me was meeting Cameron, right? But I remember, when I first started using the tools and really getting to understand principles and destiny and all of that, the whole idea that like you're participating in bullshit, to me sounded really dismissive, but what's so interesting is, man, just from the conversations that I had with Cam at that time and Avery and the support that I was given, it was anything but dismissive. It's just like, just really calling out like, hey, that thing that you've placed so much value on isn't real. And it sometimes, if you gotta, you centered your identity around that thing, or you have a character that's like really holding on to something that really is detrimental to you, it would be like saying to a someone who's like really hooked on some sort of drug or whatever. What were you saying? What did you say?
I said phonics.
Someone who's really hooked on phonics.
Fentanyl.
It's like telling them that like phonics is bullshit, and they're like, nah! But like, yeah, somebody who's hooked on drugs, or like, okay, really great example. You tell somebody who's addicted to cigarettes, who has to smoke cigarettes, like, that's going to cause you cancer, and they're like, fuck you. It's like, but you're telling them the truth. You're telling them like, this thing causes cancer. You're telling them, you're pointing out to them, hey, you're
First of
actually
all,
hurting yourself.
does it?
Who knows? But
Okay, whoa,
I know
whoa.
what you
Y'all
mean,
are
though.
railing on cacao.
I don't drink cacao. I just smoke a pack of cigarettes.
it's much healthier for you.
Yeah, he gets all the heavy metals from
Yeah.
cigarettes.
But the point being, like, you're trying to support them. How do most people who are in that position react? It's like everybody does the same thing, but they think that their thing is okay. They're not willing to separate themselves as far as like how they identify themselves, how they see themselves, who they call themselves. They're not willing to separate themselves from all the things that they quote unquote desire. And I'm putting that in quotes because it's just like Cam was saying, you're scrolling through and you get impulse with this enough times, all of a sudden you're like, literally I used to buy Eggos. I didn't buy them. My mom bought them. And I would eat them, and I didn't even like them. I didn't even like Eggos, but the commercials were just like, Lego my Eggo. I'm like, oh, I gotta have Eggos. You know, I'd see the box, there's like something cool on the box or whatever, and I'm like, I gotta have those things. I
Did you
want
say
them.
Lego my Egos when she tried to take them?
Who tried to take them from who?
Probably.
What?
I just
No.
if someone did.
No. So anyway, but I can remember distinctly kind of playing that commercial in my head and pretending like I was in that commercial, you know? And so I needed to have the prop in order to do that. And it's the same thing. And Katie put in the chat, like they fake it to fit in. I would do that in school all the time. Like fake something, fake that I was like,
Do you
oh,
think
I'm
I
so
wanted to wear
strong.
Jinkos?
What's that? I know I did. No, no, no. Chill out.
Where what?
Jinkos.
The fuck is a Jinko?
Oh wow, he's too young for it. He's too young.
You know what a
Are we
Jinko
the
is,
same
Ivan.
age?
No, you're slightly younger.
He's a
like
year.
like-
How old are you, Drake?
like you guys are on the extreme ends of millennial. Like Cam's
No,
on
no, no,
the-
no,
the
no.
top
You
end.
though, Drake.
You're
you
on the bottom end.
Don't.
I'm like a couple paces ahead of you, buddy.
A year.
Oh,
ahead.
that shit. I thought. Oh man. Yo, why is that
the
so
tight
fucked up?
shirt with the big ass jeans?
So you did wear those, Cameron?
And you had to have the Jinkos brand.
I need to put
Those
this
are-
in Mid-Journey.
Oh,
I
it's
need a picture of
brand.
Cameron
We didn't- I
Cope
don't know if we
in
had.
Jinkos.
And wouldn't they have like these chains?
That was after my time.
I remember that. Yeah, that was like goth. I thought that was the goth kids though.
It was,
But then it slowly turned into bell bottoms.
it was
like
like
it
They
got
just
more
tightened up here
taper.
and then left the bottom
Exactly.
part.
Exactly. I was in the bell bottoms.
Now it's like the complete fucking opposite.
if
No,
I was
these
like,
are
you had to
kind-
get
these are
these
actually
really
kinda coming
like this.
back.
This guy would have been really cool.
This is coming back, by the way. This trend.
if
This
I
is
were
not
a lighter
surprised.
complexion, honestly, if I were a lighter complexion, I would have been goth because I hung out.
Oh,
with the-
that's what that symbol is.
what?
Yeah.
Oh, on bottom left. You see how
Oh,
it looks
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
the-
graffiti.
with the
That's
crown?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the
Now
cool
I
thing when I was in middle
understand.
school.
You
Yeah.
didn't have
I just
clothes
remember
with
there was
with that
one
symbol
really
on it?
goth kid who scared me, and he wore
What?
them.
What'd you say, Jake?
I was asking Mitch, you didn't have clothes that had that symbol on it?
You didn't have Jinkos?
Did you have
No.
Jinkos?
I
Great.
did have Jinkos. Yeah.
Oh.
You did? No fucking
I
way. Do you have a
didn't.
picture of this?
No. Of course not. But I think I had
See, isn't that
Jinkos
fascinating though?
shorts.
It's like you infer so much about somebody based on what they wore. Because it is. It's that like fitting in, you get the attention. It's this whole thing.
Yeah.
What are you guys just advocating? We all fucking wear the same clothes, huh?
I
Make
remember
the
my-
world best for all. Everyone wearing fucking scrubs.
Scrubs.
Okay.
I was
Here's
thinking of
here's,
something fucking sterile.
here's what I had. I'll show you what I had.
Coveralls.
Let me see.
In a world that's best for all, anyone can wear Jinkos.
You know those like mechanics coveralls,
Yeah.
with short sleeves? That's what we did.
Okay. This is what I had. These are the Jinkos I had.
The shorts version.
That's not
Yeah.
Jinko. Well, it's the brand, but
It's the brand. That's all that mattered. Is the brand, you know? But yeah.
Drake just wanted
Oh.
to clarify he wasn't wearing
Mm.
the full length.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I wasn't wearing the
it
Gown.
gives me kind of school shooter vibes. I don't know.
Hey, by the way, while we're thinking about it, or while I'm thinking about it, the episode title should be D.I.D, like with dots, like periods. Like, did I do that? Question mark.
okay.
Like,
I'm down.
Urkel.
I like it.
I
like it.
love our titles so much.
D.I.D.
Because like if
capital
underneath-
D period.
okay,
I
you
period,
know
D
how
period.
you have like the clickbait
And
titles?
in brackets, you know, did I do that?
No.
You don't need brackets. You just need
and
like
then I do that. You say it like that.
yeah, but with a question mark
Mm.
at the end.
Okay,
With a
Yeah.
question mark.
got it.
Nice. Yeah, you know how there's like all the clickbait titles are like 3 easy ways to financial freedom or whatever. Ours is like literally opposite. That gives barely any context.
No, it gives context.
Well, yeah, some context.
The context
bit.
is like we talked about this thing at some point, potentially. Who knows? Or we just like the title.
Like the one that's like Illuminati Stingray.
Right.
I can't even remember what that was about.
That was literally like our recap of the event that we spent like a year creating.
That's
Isn't that
hilarious.
Right.
That's hilarious. Great.
Yeah.
Yes. What else?
Good
What else do
times.
we have?
Okay.
I got some bed rotting.
Oh, tell me about this bed rotting. I've never heard of this. Is it? Wait, let me guess at what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Let's all guess.
Okay.
Everyone guess in the comments. What is bed
I'm gonna
rotting?
guess it's bed rotting, kind of like, when you've been in a hospital bed for a really long time and you get those bed sores and everything. And so these people are just, they've been in their house for so long and just really in their bed that they're rotting away
It
in their
is
bed.
the opposite of self-care.
So is that what it is?
I don't know.
What's Katie talking about?
Is that your alter ego, Cameron? Steve?
Who's Steve?
Oh, is
Is
that
this because of the stingray?
Who's Cameron?
I don't know.
Is she talking about Steve Irwin?
Oh,
I
Steve
think
Irwin.
so.
Of the Illuminati secret?
One
Katie,
of my
Oh.
characters is Steve Irwin.
Hey, I actually read that. I read that one today. I'm going through some of the old Destiny articles. It's pretty cool.
That
Yeah,
was
the Steve
good.
Irwin one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are
that
cool.
shit's awesome. It's like talking about how important animals are. I'm like thinking, I used to like hate animals. I wasn't like the kid that like tortured
I hate
animals, but I don't know. I
Fuck
just
is
could.
wrong
I didn't
with you?
understand
It's
them.
very weird.
I know somebody else who says they hate animals, and I'm like, what do you mean you hate animals? I mean,
Okay,
can
I didn't
understand you get
hate animals.
frustrated
I
by
was more
animals.
just like
Hate's a strong word, man.
I did not understand them, and I did not see the value in them.
Well, some of
Like-
the identities in our system are animals.
Like, you don't like birds outside or like squirrels, like that kind of animal, or like dog, or what,
Yeah, like
I'm
okay,
confused.
dogs, for example, I would have family members who had dogs and they would just be annoying and like I didn't really like them. I was just in my mind. Okay. I was just a fucking punk kid.
Like if you went to the
That's
zoo,
literally
were
how it
you
was.
just like pissed off the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just kind of like didn't smell good. It just was
Fair enough.
hot.
Furious. Wow.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I just didn't see the value in animals. But that just shows you that was my mind going into like, I'm just me and I just want to play fucking video games and that's how I identify, instead of
Yeah.
actually seeing like, oh wow, we're actually here and there's animals. And if there weren't animals, like this wouldn't
I was an
I couldn't
Animal
eat my
Planet-
Eggos if there was no animals.
I was an Animal Planet child.
You guys, this is my alter personality taking over.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. So you've all given me your. Well, I'll wait for.
Oh,
Jess.
bed
I've never
rotting.
heard
I agree with
Jess.
Drake. It's someone like physically starts suffering massively because they haven't left their bed.
I saw something that might be related. Quick before you share. This person was so fat that they couldn't
This is a yo mama joke.
Don't share
that they couldn't wipe themselves
Yeah.
after going to the restroom. And so they would go to a public hot tub once a week and sit in front of a jet.
Oh God.
Wow.
Hey, don't go to your public hot tub.
I thought maybe they had like an assistant.
So is this bed rotting?
Is
what
that
you're
bed
saying?
rotting?
That's a version of it. It's gotta be.
Do you think if they were like I'm just trying to find a way to formulate the joke. I just wanted to make a joke about them telling their assistant to swipe left and swipe right, but couldn't think of a way
I'm
to
just
formulate it.
imagining like fucking feces shooting out of a jet. Like
Stop.
diarrhea, but hot.
I
But
after
they were
seeing
in
that,
the-
I was
wait,
like,
this
I
is in a
no
pool?
longer want to go to a public hot tub.
A public hot tub? What is a public hot tub? Like in a hotel?
It was at just like a fitness center.
Like a spa.
Oh,
Like a
okay, gotcha.
Like a health club.
YMCA.
Okay.
Yeah,
How-
something like that.
So they would just go and like let it blast away the remnants.
Mhm.
It's like a bidet.
The world's largest bidet, just a hot tub. The
That's
the thing
awesome.
is with a bidet, you don't sit in the bowl.
Right.
Exactly. It
it
shoots
fills up.
at you.
Yeah. Why didn't this person just buy a bidet?
Yeah, you can literally buy them. for
They
like
were
50
so
bucks
large.
on
They were like
Amazon.
one of those people that weigh like 600 or 700 pounds.
Yeah.
They have to waddle around because they can't walk. They're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Interesting.
was wild.
All right,
Anyways, what
this
is bed rotting?
Speaking of bed, well, what do you think it is? First of all, I didn't hear you or Christine.
Well, I just think it's
It's not what Drake
Somebody-
said.
oh well, okay.
I said the opposite of self-care.
Maybe it's someone who, you know how there's those people who
Why did you use the
want to
word
be-
self-care?
Because I think I saw something on your screen about self-care.
Oh,
well,
Go ahead,
there's
Jess.
those people that act like they're babies and like they get the adult size crib, they get the
Like bed
pacifiers,
sores,
they
or-
only eat baby food, you know, those kind of people. Well, maybe
those
it's
little
that
crackers
same.
that you get as a baby, those like they're like nibblers. I don't know what they're called. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The dried fruit. It's like
No,
No,
they're the
no.
they're like cookies.
It's like a
They're like
digestive cracker,
sticks.
but for babies, right?
They're actually really good.
Anyways,
I know what you're talking about.
so what if it's that same kind of like psychosis, but it's for someone who wants to be someone who's bedbound, even though they physically aren't bedbound, but they choose to be bedbound and have the symptoms of someone who has to be
Like transabled.
Yeah, trans disabled.
okay.
That's my
Okay.
theory.
Sorry, I was looking up
Can you
teething biscuits.
I
Maybe
just the
reveal.
teething crackers. I saw them. I know what you're talking about. I don't know why you call them teething
Those used to be
biscuits.
really
though.
good. I like those.
That's what came up in the search. I don't know if that's the ones I was thinking of. I just remember they looked nice.
Aristotle's really into graham crackers right now.
Like the oval shaped happy baby teether crackers.
Remember them being oval shaped.
Well, oblong shaped.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't remember them being that way when I was eating them as a
When when you were a baby.
Okay, wait, were you eating these before you had kids, or did Katie get them for the kids, thus you tried them?
No, I just remember them as a kid. And like maybe trying them again when I had like a 2-year-old brother when I was like a teenager.
Oh, really?
I thought you were saying you got these for yourself
Okay,
as like a
what is
college
bed
student.
rotting?
I was
Can
like,
we
Well,
get
that was a
on
joke.
with this?
The bed rotting?
I'm getting impatient.
Yeah.
Oops.
Okay, yes, I know about those.
Bed rotting. Some call it self-care, but experts urge caution. There's a new trend called bed rotting, and it's actually perfect, PhD candidate Vanessa Hill said in a TikTok video.
What?
I didn't realize there was a video. Can I just watch this?
And I just saw the video is over.
Oh, you
Just where you lay in
just
bed all
literally
day.
lay in bed all day.
Why are they calling it bed rotting?
Yeah, why didn't they come up with a better name?
Seriously.
I'm just rotten. in my
Okay,
bed.
so
Look,
she's
people are saying, me, I'm literally bed rotting right now.
Isn't that just like
so here's
being
what she said.
depressed?
Bed, because like she had a really annoying like
Sounds like
New
you're
Zealand
depressed.
accent.
Yeah.
Bed rotting is when they do literally. Oh, let me turn this on. Oh no, wait, that was my screen share.
Yeah, we were watching that.
I was trying to read along.
Sorry.
I was reading along to make sure you didn't skip any words.
Bed rotting is when they do literally nothing but lay in bed. It's the end of optimization and anti-productivity. That's a weird sentence. Anti-productivity because you are wasting away under a blanket and the nothingness is your best life. I'm a sleep scientist who fact checks a lot of trends, and I'm here to tell you that bed rotting is 100% backed by science.
Oh my gosh.
100%.
Other experts say the practice is more complicated than that, however.
Oh my gosh.
Bed rotting can become a problem if you are doing it in the context of to avoid something, or you feel like you're not physically or emotionally able to get out of bed. For example, if you're staying in bed because you're anxious about something, or you're doing it to avoid social interaction, well, why else would you be doing it?
Seriously. That sounds like some deranged mental illness going on.
It just sounds like depression, just for
Yeah.
calling it bed rotting now.
Just straight up depression.
If you're a parent and your child has been spending significant periods of time in bed, that is a raise for concern. Parents who think their children are showing symptoms of mental health disorder like depression or anxiety are encouraged to get help from a medical professional. I mean, I don't want to make medical claims here. That's the last person I'm going to, personally. Next thing I know, I'm out of there with D.I.D, OSDD, PTSD.
Go to the bathroom in your bed
And
and
on fentanyl.
go to a public
Yeah, they're probably,
Hot
I'm
tub
taking
once a
shits in
week.
my bed.
But they're trying to make it trendy, you see. Like she's like, oh, I'm all cute wrapped up in this blanket, bed rotting. Like what?
It's like, they're not bedwetting, they're literally making a TikTok video. She's a sleep scientist working on a PhD.
Imagine you're trying to figure out how to get the perfect video of you bed rotting. So you have to figure out how to get your phone to hover over your bed. Like, are you going to use some kind of phone stand, some kind of string from the ceiling? It's got to be straight.
I think
All the
I
work
bed
that
rotted
goes
a
into
lot
bed
during
rotting.
But you have to
COVID.
take your ADHD medication to get focused. But then of course you fall into the time blindness situation. 'Cause you're
Oh,
hyper
suddenly I don't
focused.
even know what I'm doing. Why is there a phone above my bed?
Right.
Is
So you
somebody
need to
coming
relax
over?
from the hyper focusedness, so you take your fentanyl.
Oh,
But that
God.
triggers your OSDD.
So I saw this video of a guy breaking down basically this woman who is a heavily cited scientist, right? Or behavioral psychologist rather, from Harvard, and apparently she faked a lot of her research. A lot of like they did the research, but
Not surprising.
a lot of the data was from fake data sets, right? And it was just discovered recently, and this has been for at least a decade that she's been cited as like, oh, and then you go to this study and this, and like books have been written based on her research by other behavioral psychologists, whether
It's
knowingly
kind
or
of like the whole thing
unknowingly.
with dinosaurs.
I don't like dinosaurs, right? But it's really interesting because it just shows you the breakdown of this video was basically saying that environment is so competitive that you have to be continuously putting out research and publishing and all of this stuff, that the top people that you look up to in Harvard and everything are actually faking it.
It's literally fake it till you make it.
Literally.
Like the actual embodiment of that statement.
Wow.
Literally. Right. And so it's not just at Harvard, it's at Stanford, it's at like all these like major schools. They're finding the same thing where it's like people just basically lie.
Some people are like, where's your research? And it's like, do you even
Right?
fucking, if it just said Harvard on it, you'd believe it?
Exactly.
You wouldn't read it, you wouldn't understand it. You don't fucking know statistics and
That's
shit.
exactly what people are doing. And so like, oh, okay. So about that point of like not understanding statistics, it was showing like the significance, the statistical probability of it happening was like p like 0.00001, which is like that is definitely being caused by this, versus like in order for you to make a claim like this is significant at all, like the actions that you're taking is causing this, or at least for it to be probable that that's being caused by this, it has to be like 0.05, right?
That's like the standard.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so the fact that it was like 0.00001 was just like, it is for sure.
She's like, throw some more zeros in there.
Right. And then when they filter out, like when they actually comb through her research and everything, and like all of her studies were like that, like 0.0001. And so it was just like
the most highest probability. Yeah.
Exactly. So then when they actually come through the data sets and they remove the fake data, it's like 0.26. So it's just like, maybe that's because of that. Like it's correlated slightly, I guess. That's basically what that comes down to, right? It was interesting because, like you said, people don't even understand that. People don't even understand what they're looking at.
No,
right?
people would say that the more zeros before the number makes it a smaller number.
Well, it does.
Yeah, it does.
But they don't understand
But thus
how...
making it a smaller chance that it would happen.
That's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point. It's like the likelihood that this would happen without this catalyst, let's say, is that small. So it has to be because of this catalyst. Right. So the crazy thing is, though, is like people don't understand how to read statistics, number one. Number two, they don't understand, like they're going to use all this like heavy jargon of like this and that and that. And then,
well, think of all the people that wrote studies based on her stuff and they didn't even check it.
Right.
So then you're expecting the average person to check it. You know,
Right.
it's like we were talking the other day about all the reading research. And like
Yes.
all the stuff going on and like how they teach kids to read, and it's all based on like a bunch of bullshit.
So
Of,
all that's
like, how poor
required
readers
for
read.
you to get any kind of statistical significance would simply be you got a degree from Harvard, or your study is considered a Harvard study,
Pretty much.
or
a
like
Stanford study or
Stanford or Yale or something where it's like a significant.
I don't even need that.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't necessarily need it to be from Harvard. It could just be anywhere.
You could literally make up a company called the Council for Reading Research.
Okay, so because I obviously know that things have been cushioned as far as statistics
You
and
could make up
research
a
studies.
company called the
But-
World Health Organization.
People base their entire view of all things medical or whatever, like the whole COVID thing. People are like, the only thing that I believe are these research studies. Yet these
But they
research
don't even
studies
know about the
could be
research studies.
completely made up.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be completely somebody just saying, hey, here's some random information that's considered real. We never did any studies, but I'm going to say we did studies. It's not
But a
even
lot of times, people are not looking at the study, they're looking at a headline where the
Or
person
like
who wrote the headline or the article interpreted the study they wanted to interpret.
I get that, but there's also a group of people who, you know, they're like, no, I read it. And it's like, it wouldn't matter if you read it or not, because it's not even based on anything real in the first
It's a
place.
fictional book.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
fictional
And-
book.
And I
It's like,
think,
well, I read Harry Potter, so you know, I'm waiting for my
and it
life.
was like, I thought that they had to at least conduct a study and then they could fabricate the numbers, but they don't even have to done a study. It
Well,
can
in,
just
the-
be
in these
totally
cases,
fake.
they did do a study in these cases,
But yeah,
but they
it's
did
just-
fabricate the numbers.
Right, exactly. And that's like
Crazy.
common, like across the board. Like
But
I've
it can
talked
be
to-
also how you interpret things and how you filter the information, and then how you.
Right.
There's a
I have
lot
a
of
lot-
ways you can manipulate it.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Exactly.
say, like I have friends that did like a lot of research labs and stuff, like during and after university, and virtually every single one of them said that every professor they worked under fabricated all their results in order to keep their grants and all the money that they were getting funded for their research.
Right. What happens if you do all this research and like you don't show any kind of result? But I mean, it was still valuable because you showed, you know, this is not
It's-
the way to
yeah,
this is not
yeah,
the
yeah.
answer, or this is not the reason, or whatever. That is valuable in a way, but that's not, someone's not going to give you money to continue that. So like, oh no, we wanted the one that, so then of course there's an incentive. I mean, come on. We all went to high school.
Yeah.
You all did chemistry labs. Don't you remember when you would be at the end and you're like, what? There's no way that thing was falling 5,000 miles per hour. Like, I'm just gonna put, what'd you guys get? 10? Okay, I'm gonna put like 10.7. All right, you know, like that works. And then I'm just gonna put like a source of error. And you're like, what are the sources of error? You're like, I don't know. Like, a source of error could be I measured wrong. And you're like trying to like figure out the bullshit.
Yes. Yes. I remember. I
did
remember
that.
doing
And why was it that
exactly
we always did the lab first and then you studied the theory after?
Yeah.
That was almost always the way it was done. It's like you're doing this lab and you don't necessarily get to the theory until some other later point, or like while you're doing the lab, and you're like, wouldn't it be have been more helpful to study all this stuff first and then go apply it
Well,
in the lab,
no,
understand what the
because-
fuck I was doing?
You have to have the context of like doing the lab room, and then I can always refer back to, remember that lab that we did that you didn't get, that you didn't understand? You remember?
Yeah.
Or
the whole
our chemistry teacher did a lot of like,
meth.
you have to present this theory in a creative way, whether you do a creative PowerPoint, you do a creative poem, a rap, or whatever. Like, you have to go in front of the class and creatively present this theory. And it was like, why? So that we can refer back to that presentation of the theory to remember the theory instead of actually knowing the theory for what it is.
You're like in your lab as a scientist much years later, and you're like, okay.
What was that rap again?
Did you do
Yeah, yeah.
chemistry in
Oh, yes,
in
okay.
university, Cam?
Huh?
Did you do chemistry in university?
I did. I also, yeah, I did in high school. I also did in university
Because I
multiple
was saying,
times.
like, university was like a whole, like, I used to do like 3-hour labs at any university.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like
Hold
on,
literally,
hold on.
if you messed up at the beginning, you were fucked. Like for
Hold on.
the rest of it.
Hold on, guys. I did chemistry at the Air Force Academy,
Oh jeez.
which is
Uh.
like the most and like at that's like a really high pressure academic environment. But that course is like the one everybody fucking hates. It's just like you described it. It's like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work, and you're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah, when I did
USC
chemistry,
is
you
like
did
that
both
too.
the in classroom setting, like the theory, and then you also had a lab. There were two
Right.
separate things.
Right. Oh, you mean like two separate classes,
You didn't, yeah, they weren't even at the same time.
like in college?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But in high school, that's
college.
not how it is. Yeah.
No, of course not. No, in
Yeah.
college, that's how
I
it
know what
was.
you mean, though.
And then
You'd have like a lab
in,
day in college.
yeah, a separate lab day. And then you go to lab day, and if you didn't pay attention at all in regular class, then you had no context at all, and you were just following everybody else, and you're like hoping that you're doing it right. You typically had a lab partner, so you hoped the lab partner was paying attention and knew what they were doing. Because if you both didn't know what you were doing, then you really were screwed. Because the lab person teaching was a different teacher than the person in the classroom setting, so
Right.
it wasn't even congruent in that sense. And my lab teacher was a fucking bonehead. He was like this old guy that was just walking the walk to get his paycheck, and it was
I don't
like,
think that's the expression.
I don't
whoa.
know that's how you use that. It's just walking the walk.
I could just imagine it's like day to present your lab to like you turn it in or whatever, and they're like, Jessica, do you have your lab report? And you're like, like, what are you doing?
You know that
And then your quizzes, you didn't even have to do in class. The quizzes were online that you did out of classroom hours. So of course you could cheat on your quizzes. What is that?
I was in college when they introduced online stuff. Like when I was in high school, we didn't have that yet. Yeah, I don't think we had it at all. But
We
then
really
in
didn't do that.
college,
in
that was when they started.
high
There was something
school
called
either.
WebAssign, which was like one of the first ones.
Hmm.
Now it's like the high schools, that's all they do. It's like all online, like
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't do that in high school either, but that's because I was from the boonies. So, you know,
you didn't
when
have internet.
I mean, I graduated with a class of like 64 people. So it was pretty small in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere. It was
That
like,
bigger than I
They couldn't
thought.
justify the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
64 people.
well, that was high school. In grade school, before I moved to the public school, I went to a Catholic grade school for the first couple of years. And I had like less than 10 people in my class.
Oh, wow. When you were saying that point of like people looking at the research and going like, oh, we can't use this. We didn't get a result. That reminded me of that video that you sent of the LGBTQ whatever research scientists, whatever it was. They
Pronouncing?
did that survey for the engineering
Oh,
students.
yeah.
And they were like, we were personally attacked by the engineering
Yeah, it was like
students.
one of our research staff like felt, they needed to take time off because of the responses were like hateful and all this. And I'm like,
And the responses were literally like, what is your gender? Apache helicopter. Like,
or people just saying like, I don't agree that there's more than two genders. Like, this is a waste of time.
right.
There was nothing that they quoted in there that was like overtly
Offensive.
like hostile or something,
right.
you
Right.
know?
It's just like, why are you
And-
wasting my time?
And then they
Was
said it
it
was like,
Anonymous?
I
Was it
assume so.
their answers
Usually they
anonymous?
are.
I assume
I would
so.
assume so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like
Anyways,
they're then they're
that
saying it's
student
like-
was screwed.
yeah, but then they're saying it's like online fascism.
Yeah.
Like, what does that have to do with fascism? They're just using that word, like throwing it around. Like, fascism is when all the corporations are fucking doing pride displays because the government said it's Pride Month. That's fascism. You know what I mean? Like actual fascism. Instead of
actually
this
is.
bullshit of like, it's just something that I disagree with or I don't like or make me feel bad. And imagine being a research scientist and the thing that you're studying, you can't even focus on studying it because you're constantly being offended and feeling personally attacked by studying it.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that's what's going on. It's ridiculous. It's like, why would you have a transgender person on that team? They can't handle, like,
You have to be inclusive. You got more brownie points for
You can't be
having
inclusive
someone
of
who's
any- of
They're just
anybody who's
transgender
upset
on your
that
research
their
team.
ideology was clearly not accepted within the engineering community. And they're
But-
like, you're the fascist trying to, promote your two gender like ideology or whatever, basically. Because
that
like if
goes-
you actually look at what fascism means, it's like, okay, like Cam said, like the pride thing is you're trying to be a fascist, essentially.
But
with
it's
your-
like, you asked.
right.
You know what I mean?
At the same
Like,
time.
and now you're
If
upset.
you didn't
that-
want to know,
Why did you ask? If you assumed
asked.
everybody was going to be nice and friendly
He went
about
into
it,
the
you just
wrong
already know the
classroom,
answer.
clearly. He should have gone to the gender studies or the women's studies or whatever those other.
But then it's like, again, and then now that's research. And the research is saying that there's fascism rampant in the engineering departments. And it's like, hold on, aren't you interpreting it that way?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So when I went through college and I had like sociology, psychology, classes like that, they were considered soft sciences. And there you're discussing how people come to the conclusion of having mental illnesses or the reason why their personalities are the way they are based on not only their background, but then also the background that they were in within like geography and different things like that and social environments. And that's like, first of all, a lot of that stuff, as being in this group, you've noticed is not at all accurate. And we've learned a lot through going through not only DIP, but then studying destiny and whatnot to understand more of what the mind is and how it works. But why is it considered a soft science if like where you grew up and those kind of things did actually affect you as an adult?
What do you
Like
mean?
Soft as in they don't have
That's a-
hard
the soft
evidence.
science versus hard science.
What does
Yeah.
that have to do with what you're?
Though I'm asking, why is it called soft science?
Because
Because like
it's more open to interpretation.
people's backgrounds is 100%, like we've learned now, obviously, that 100% affects who you are and how you present yourself, the personalities you have,
Yes, the
characters, all that.
just the argument that you would get from that is, well, not everyone from that environment turns out exactly the same.
Well,
And
you
so-
didn't have the same genetics.
Well,
But the reason why I think it's called soft is because people want to put a dichotomy of like some things are conclusive and some things aren't conclusive. And so you can, which is not even true of the hard sciences. It's like trying to make it's really just to make the hard sciences seem conclusive and the soft
Even though-
sciences open to interpretation, even though it's treated as conclusive. So it's just
Yeah.
bullshit. It's just bullshit. Like if you look it up, it says
Because
hard
like
sciences
nowadays
use
they
math.
treat the soft science like hard science and the hard science like soft science.
Well, and then they're trying to take hard science like engineering and inject it with soft science.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like I wasn't, this is pre me walking my process, and I'm in this psychology class, and I'm like,
preemie you?
huh?
You said you were a preemie walking your
I didn't know
process?
you were a preemie.
This is pre me walking my process. Yes. Anyways, so I'm in this sociology class, and he's, they bring up this person had this theory about everything, and this affected you this way, and this was the main reason why you turned out the way you did, and this person thought it was this, and this person thought it was this, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, all those things are relevant to how you became who you are. It's not just one or the other. Like all those factors affected you. And I just said it out loud. I was like, I raised my hand and I was like, wouldn't all of these factors affect how somebody turns out when they become an adult? And he was just like, he like blew me off. And he was just like, that we're not talking, that's a little too
What was the
advanced for the
question?
group here
What was the
or
question you
whatever.
asked?
I just was saying, don't all these factors from all the theories we've learned through this semester affect how a person turns out
Okay.
as an adult? And he blew me off so hard. He's like, that's a little too advanced for this class, or that's not something that we discuss here. Something like that, where it's
Yeah.
like, but that should be obvious. And that, like, that just is the logical conclusion that not one person is right and not one factor repeatedly affects people more than the other. It's unique to a person, but all of those factors affect someone.
The
Like-
problem is you have specialization. So you have a scientist who specializes in a certain thing. And like you were talking about, Drake, with getting grants and stuff, it's like you want everything to boil down to that and promote that as the thing that's the most important. And so another scientist isn't going to be like, yeah, their thing's also equally important. They're going to be like, this is the thing, and they're going to focus on that. And so nobody is able to then
They're
'cause
just
there's
wanting
no,
to be
you can't get a
special.
degree in generalization. It's like you get a degree in something specific, and you get your master's and your thesis, and you go really specific and specialize. So the problem is people, they can't look at other fields and see how it all connects. That's really what you're seeing there. And the teacher doesn't fucking know anything. They're just there to administer the material.
Yeah.
So when they get a student who's asking real questions, that's just the effect of the school system. They're like, well, that's not part of their curriculum to
Yeah.
discuss that. It's like, you need to memorize, this is cognitive behavioral therapy, and this is blah, 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 or whatever. And this is that. Like, that's not part of the curriculum to look at how they all combine. Because they're not looking for solutions either. They're just looking for coping mechanisms.
Well, that's what we need is
Solutions.
solutions where we take all of the information and bring it together instead of specializing and
I just
leaving
found
parts
a
out.
I just found a journal article from a Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. Gender representation cues labels of hard and soft sciences. So what they're arguing is that the reason why one thing is called hard versus soft is because it's whichever one has more men or women in it.
What?
Which
More women are in the soft sciences, so it's considered soft, and more men are in the hard sciences, so it's considered hard.
Okay, now this makes
Exact
sense.
reason you're
it actually
thinking
makes
of.
sense.
Now
Like,
this
I mean,
makes
they're trying to
sense.
make it like it's a bad thing, I guess, but
No, I'm clear on it now. I'm clear. I get it. I was listening to this podcast where this guy was talking about how it's really interesting because the guy came right out the gate saying that men are naturally leaders, and it's not a bad thing. But throughout history, whenever women start to take over society, that usually means the end of that society, right? Whenever women take over, as in they are leading everything, right? And he said that usually results, well, in modern times, rather, it results in communism. What are you going to say?
I just realized what's going on
What's that?
with the whole trans thing.
Hmm.
It's a trick. It's actually, okay, maybe we should change the name of the podcast title.
Patriarchal.
We should change the title maybe to like Trans Will Save Us or something, right? Because think about this, like what you just said. And when the women get in charge, they like, it starts to collapse, right? But what if all the women that were in charge were trans women?
So they were all actually men.
Yes. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the feeling that women are in charge. So all the women can be happy with that, but you still get the leadership of the men.
That's a
Unfortunately.
confused man.
I wish I could believe
This
that.
is how you make women's sports entertaining again.
Hey,
Or,
did you know that they said
entertaining at all.
Leah Thomas can't swim against women anymore?
What is
Which is transphobic.
That's what I'm saying.
Because look, I don't want to watch a bunch of slow swimmers.
I
I want
know.
to watch fast swimmers. So now I can
But
watch
I
the men's
also
and
wanna
get the fast,
watch-
and I can watch
I
the
wanna
women's
watch
and also
this-
get kind of fast.
I want to watch a biological male who identifies as a female just obliterate. Yes, all the records in female swimming and just
Well,
be a whole
it can't
lap
happen.
ahead of all
That
of
can't
them.
happen. It can't happen. Because trans women are women. They're not biological men. Sorry to crush your dreams.
That's why they told her she couldn't do that.
Right.
That must have been it. That must have been it.
But I
She
think this
must
is
have-
what China's secret plot is. Like they actually want the US to be stronger. They want competition. So they're like, they're going to infiltrate us with a bunch of transgender ideology
Mhm.
so that our men will step back up. Because they're
I'm,
like, I'm getting bored. That's what it is.
I'm lost on this
Also-
one.
They have this problem where they have too many men.
Mhm. Oh, that's
So
true.
they're like, let's get a bunch of them to become women.
There you go. There you go. Okay, now I'm following again. Now I'm
Because
following.
men can get pregnant.
That's right. That's right. So
I thought you didn't even need a human involved. I thought you could just have a external incubator.
well, that's coming next. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
only
why
available
even
for
involve the
OSD
men?
type 1Bs.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating because I watched some. Have you ever watched the Ladyboy interviews on Soundflight Underbelly Cam?
I've started watching a couple of them, but I never like got through them.
So because they're really short, because they barely speak English, so you can only ask like,
Right.
a few
That's why I was like,
questions.
I mean, it's interesting. But yeah, go.
Yeah, but it's fascinating because the trans culture in America is actually quite different than it is in like Thailand. It's
Yeah.
like here we're trying to make it like they're also woman, you know what I mean? Like you're whatever you identify as, like that's the truth. He was asking them questions like that, and they're like, no, like I'm like I have a penis and like I'm not planning on cutting it off like at all. You know what I mean? Like there's still some sound and logic, even though obviously like you know they're not identifying with their biological gender, but they're also not trying to convince themselves like I'm not a biological boy. It's like
Right.
they're fully okay with saying
They're like, you understand, lady boy is I'm a boy.
Hey,
Right.
when I visited LA in 8th grade or something with my mom, I was doing some modeling out there and I couldn't find shoes big enough for my feet. And the only place that had shoes big enough were the ladyboy section of the shoe stores.
A lady boy
Wait,
section.
they have a
drag
lady boy
like
section.
the drag section.
Yeah,
That's
in
a
the shoe
thing?
stores. Yeah, because heels don't go up to the size that they need in the normal women's section.
I understand the logic. I just didn't know that there was a lady boy section in a shoe store.
I had no idea.
Well, I mean, in LA there was.
That's crazy. I would never have guessed that. But I mean, it
Very
makes sense.
interesting.
No, but I ended up buying 2 pair of ladyboy heels because they're the only ones that fit my feet.
That'll be taken out of context at some point in the future.
It doesn't
Jess
matter.
is lady boy. No,
Anyways,
it's interesting
what's
because
our
like
next topic?
it's really clear that like whenever somebody in a society goes crazy, they go crazy in a specific context. They go crazy in their understanding of what crazy is based on the way that they were raised and their environment and everything. Like if you're in some indigenous tribe, going crazy looks like just filing your teeth, and that's what they consider going crazy, versus here in the States, going crazy is you shoot up a building or something like that, right? Like that's how going crazy is defined here. And so it's also interesting, ladyboy over there is like, which is obviously influenced by money, right? It's like I'm sure the ladyboys make decent money, maybe even in Thailand, because it's a form of prostitution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
of course they know how to manipulate men. They are one.
Right. And so, as a child growing up in that environment, you might look at them and go, well, they've got the money, and they're actually attractive because, they're meant to look like ladies, right? And a child might see that as like, yeah, I want to be like that. I live in this dirt hut or whatever, and I want to have something where I feel like I'm wanted. I have money, I have some status, and that culture supports that over there.
Yeah,
versus
it's like part of their culture. It's not seen as a mental problem, but it's still something that's not real and normal because it's really just the influence of money, like you're saying. It's not
Right.
an actual thing. You know, it's kind of like over in America, it's like a kid might want to be like a Disney star or something, because that's like
Right.
that's where the money's at and the fame and all that stuff, right? So
Right.
it doesn't seem like the same thing, but it's really the same influence.
Yeah. Did you see that? I just remembered that video I sent you of the NPC, like your real life girlfriend and an NPC girl.
didn't
It was
see that.
yeah, it was Churdley's, that guy. And they were making fun of the girl who's like gang gang, gang gang, gang gang.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
Brutal.
Okay, I was watching the podcast when you guys were showing that video, and I literally had to take Aristotle out of the room. I was like, I'm not gonna impulse him with this lady.
Oh yeah, disclaimer, children should not watch our podcast.
Yeah, I was
Definitely
like,
not.
what?
Definitely not.
Especially when we play clips from YouTube.
Yeah, yes. Gang
Lady
gang.
boys,
Gang.
lady boys can watch.
Okay.
Yeah, now think about it. She's got kids, and the kids sitting there watching mom do that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's insane.
I wonder if he goes to school
So
going like that. Gang gang, gang gang.
Goes to school. Hey, look, this is my mom. Your mom a robot?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So anything else, Cam?
Well, that's all I got for this week.
So
Just bed rotting, multiple personalities, just normal stuff.
and the system that is inside of you of 50 different personalities, and then we can, it's like Jesus said, end that system inside of you before you point out the system in others.
That's pretty
Yeah,
much what he meant.
let's work through this normalization of mental illness and actually do something real with our lives.
Yeah, like that whole trend you were talking about earlier of the kids getting sicker than the parents and all that. That's the same thing. Like the parents didn't have all these mental disorders, or it wasn't as prominent.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're just talking about random stuff, but when you really like look at it all together, it's what we're showing is how it's all amplifying and becoming more and more and more and more. It's not like there's going to be some event that occurs where everything just suddenly gets better. It's like we each have to stand up and address these points within ourselves, because it's not just the crazy people on TikTok or the teachers in the schools, it's everybody participating.
Totally.
So that's why you should participate in the group, come to the hangouts and beyond.
100%.
All right, see you guys next week.
See you.
Bye.
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 Bye.